Good afternoon. Welcome to another travelogue and another travelogue by Gayle and Mike Callahan. We always appreciate them sharing all their expertise with us. And we welcome those that are with us today in person, as well as those of us that are online. What we're going to hear about today is part one of Australia and New Zealand, in which Mike and Gayle did about 6 months ago. So without me saying much more, because they can say a lot more, we're going to turn it over to them. And for about 45 minutes, they're going to share information with us, and then we'll have a question and answer. So please join me in welcoming Gayle and Mike Callahan.
Thanks, Anita. And thanks for all of you for being here, and those of you online, and those of you who will watch this somewhere down in the future. I have wanted to go to Australia since I was in fourth grade. My fourth grade teacher had been, and she made me want to go. And I met Mike, and he had been, and he didn't want to go. He'd been there, done that. Why would I want to go to Australia? New Zealand's so much prettier. So we finally agreed to go to both. And last fall, we made it happen. We decided on like September 3rd, and we left on October 28th. Yeah. And by the way, we left on October 28th and we arrived on October 30th. It was a 28-hour door-to-door trip. But first, Australia is about the size of the contiguous 48 states. In population, it is a little bit less than Texas. So you can see it over the United States to get a feel for that. On the map of Australia, we hit Sydney. We flew into Sydney and Adelaide. So Sydney's in New South Wales and Adelaide is in South Australia for their states, territories, provinces. When we arrived in Sydney, we went straight from the airport to our hotel, which was well, this is the view from our hotel. We were like, oh, wow. We were on the 7th floor, which is really the 8th floor because the first floor does not count. It's like the rez-de-chaussée in French. So 28 hours travel time. This hotel was advertising that we could even then still get a room for New Year's Eve to watch the amazing fireworks. Look it up on YouTube. They have amazing fireworks in Australia. It's summertime there, of course.
This year we actually made a point of watching live fireworks displays around the world: Kuala Lumpur, Singapore, Tokyo, Sydney. And Sydney truly was the most dynamic fireworks display this past New Year's Eve. And partially because of its just impressive location right there in Sydney Harbor, headquartered on the Harbor Bridge, and thousands of boats out in the water. Special place.
Yeah, look their fireworks display up on YouTube. It's quite a show.
Okay, so after the long flight, which I thought went pretty well, it was about a 15-hour flight from LA to Sydney. Of course, you go through the many time zone changes, but we did arrive in the morning, which made us feel a little more refreshed. And the airport's just on the north side of Botany Bay. And that was a huge bay that Captain Cook, in his first voyage of discovery, he did enter the Botany Bay, and that was its first landfall. And I'm not sure where in Botany Bay he landed, but he picked a nice, safe area. And when he departed Botany Bay, he named it Botany Bay because his botanist that was on board had collected so many samples that they just went ahead and named it Botany Bay. So he proceeded to go north along the coastline. And of course, the coastline is just beautiful. All parts of Australia, the coastline is just so amazing. A lot of rocky coastlines interspersed with beautiful sandy beaches. And as Captain Cook went north, he took a look to his left at the entrance to Sydney Harbor and said, I'll just keep going. Not knowing that Sydney Harbor is by many considered one of the most beautiful harbors in the world, and it truly was beautiful. So we took about what, a 30-minute Uber ride from Sydney Airport to our hotel just on the south side of the Sydney Harbor.
So the Sydney Harbor, you see a little bit here, it's kind of between Manly and where you see Rose Bay on there. The entrance is only 1.5 miles wide. So I think that's probably why Captain Cook just skipped it. He didn't think there was anything there. But it's a very deep harbor. As you saw the cruise ships that come in, and the inlet is 12 miles in length, and we took a ferry all the way up there to Olympic Park. So you can go that far.
Also, from the Opera House, next to the Opera House is the main ferry port, and we took a ferry ride of about 30 minutes to Manly.
Yeah.
Also, about a 20-minute ferry ride to Rose Bay, and both locations were just so beautiful. And we could walk to the coast from the Rose Bay Marina, and also on Manly. We just walked around. We didn't have to rent a car or hop on any public transportation. We could just go from the harbor side to the Pacific Ocean side.
So Circular Quay is the hub of everything in the Sydney Harbor. And this is not our picture, but it's a good representation. On the left there, you see the rocks. That's the oldest area of Sydney.
Where the convicts started building their homes.
Yes. And of course, the Harbor Bridge, of course, the Opera House, a cruise ship. There was a different cruise ship in port every day we were there. These gorgeous jacaranda trees. They are not indigenous to Australia, but the Australians love them, and they had them planted everywhere. And since we were there in the springtime, we got to enjoy the beauty of the jacaranda trees. We also saw them in Phoenix in the springtime, but nothing like we saw them in Australia. Kind of from where we're standing behind the picture is where the Circular Quay area is, and that's where all the light rail, all the buses, all the trains, all the subways come in. And then over here on the right is the ferry docks.
There would be six piers, double-sided. So there was lots of traffic coming and going, and that would be from about 5 in the morning till 1 or 2 at night. So you could get to all sorts of points in Sydney Harbor that from this location.
So the first place we went was Watson's Bay. This is me at Watson's Bay. And then across from that is Manly. There's Mike at Manly.
And you can see in Gayle's picture underneath the tree, the ferry boat. They came in different sizes, but they were very comfortable, very efficient. We're talking like ferries leaving every 10 or 15 minutes to the same locations during, the better part of the day. So you didn't have to worry about catching a ferry.
No. Here's some views from the ferry that obviously the Sydney Harbor, but just views that you don't typically see just from different angles. And of course, the nighttime view of the city. Couple more from the ferry when we came back from Manly Beach. The second time we came back at night so that we could get the night view, and it's gorgeous.
Yeah. Go ahead, Gayle.
Oh, I was just going to point out the Ferris wheel here is on the north side of the harbor. So when we went over the bridge, which we'll get to, we were on the north side. Yeah.
So the Harbor Bridge was built in the 1930s. The Opera House, I've lost track of when that was built.
1960.
1960. But it's so much larger in person. Most of the pictures you see are on a postcard or something like this, but it's immense.
And those are our pictures. So here we go We're on the ferry. Here's a sailboat that
I-
we're watching.
I took this picture because being from Kansas, I was just infatuated with water, salt water, and then seeing a sailboat just gliding on the water as our ferry boat just went racing past it. It was really fun to see people enjoying the water.
And here we are in a park from Lookout Point, which is just above the rocks area, so in the old part of Sydney, looking over at the Harbor Bridge. And as Mike said, it was opened in 1932. And here's the other statistics. I put them in the in our version of feet, and so that it would make sense to you. I had to do all the conversions. We rode the train across the Harbor Bridge to the north side where we saw the Ferris wheel, and then we walked back across it.
Which took what?
It wasn't
30
very-
minutes or so?
Yeah, we got lollygagged across it, taking pictures and looking at scenery.
Great advantage point
Right.
for seeing all sorts of things.
When we got off the train, it was starting to rain. It was springtime there, so they had spring-like weather, kind of how it was yesterday here and today here. We had some of that there. We did see, these are pictures of climbers that we saw, that it's a big deal to climb the Harbor Bridge. If you have $250 in 3 hours, go for it. I think I'm a little beyond that, but
You could do it.
What do you mean by climbing the bridge? I couldn't see.
Go back another one.
yeah, so that
So
That
the
top-
arch,
the
the
arch.
archway where the flags are, do you see the flags?
Uh-huh.
So on the upper part of the archway, they literally have a walking path that full of steps, many steps. And so you can, only with a guide, can you then walk to the top of the Harbor Bridge arch.
That makes sense.
Yeah.
My friend Joy and traveling buddy is on the Zoom, and we like to climb things. So Joy, you want to go back? Then these are some pictures we took from the Harbor Bridge. I thought it was really cool. You can see all the ferries zipping around. Well, some of the ferries zipping around. There's a lot of ferries. The Rocks is the old district, as we have said, right there on the west side of Circular Quay. It's where convicts and their guards first landed and made camp. It's the oldest colonial area of Sydney. We were there Halloween weekend, and they did celebrate all weekend Halloween. You can see the skull statue behind Mike. This was a place with pubs and restaurants and shops, and just kind of a fun little district. And Circular Quay was busy that weekend.
A little trivia. So the Rocks had a lot of convicts living there. Times were hard. There was nothing easy about life there. And some of the wardens and its management team were having a hard time. So if you think in your history books, Captain Bligh of Mutiny on the Bounty, well, he was sort of a no-nonsense guy, and he later was asked to go to Sydney to get the convicts in order, to get things organized. And so Captain Bligh from Mutiny on the Bounty came in and helped get things going in the Sydney colony.
Well, can I ask you a quick question about that?
Yeah.
The convicts, were they out of jail at that time, or were they in jail and that's where they were? Does that make sense?
They were still convicts, still prisoners, but they had to build their own lodging and grow their own food, and and while being guarded, yes.
The Aussies were very friendly. When we crossed the bridge to the north side, and we were at Milson's Point, and there was a gentleman there who was very interested where we were from, and well, where is Kansas City, and what is Kansas City all about? And he asked all kinds of questions. We chatted with him quite a while, waiting for the rain to kind of die down at any rate, and gave us some suggestions of things we should definitely see. Manly Beach was one of them. And then we went to a coffee shop, and this was our barista. And he was very friendly too, again, asking us where we were from. Well, where's Kansas City? I didn't know Kansas or Kansas City, of course. We said the Wizard of Oz. He didn't know the Wizard of Oz. He did know Wicked. But obviously he's quite young. And we found out he was from South Korea. And we were there on our Japan trip. We were in South Korea for one day. So we told him that we had been to Sokcho a couple years ago. And he goes, "Oh, that's very near my home." And Mike pulled up some pictures from Sokcho and showed it to him. And he said, "Oh, it made him so homesick." We told him, yeah, about Kansas City jazz. And he said, "Oh, he really liked jazz." So we said, "Well, play Going to Kansas City." And so he pulled it up on his phone on the sound system for the coffee shop. And yeah, just they were very friendly, very interested in what we were doing. He asked us where we were going. We said, "We're going to Adelaide." And he said, "Oh, the gal right there, she's from Adelaide." She goes, "The weather's much better there." Well, I think we did them backwards because we kind of had the more springish weather when we got to Adelaide too. But
April, when you go to Australia
October,
in October,
November.
It's not, what you think of when you think of Australia. Everyone's on the beach, surfing, getting sun. It's sort of cool.
Springtime.
It was springtime.
We visited Hyde Park in Sydney. So on the south side is the Anzac Memorial. That's where Mike's standing in front of there, which is a memorial to the Australians and New Zealanders, I missed that, who served in World War I. And there's a reflecting pool there. And then we walked across the park. It's this long park-like trees and everything. We had a picnic lunch there. And then on the north end of the park this isn't a very good picture of the fountain, but Archibald Fountain with the St. Mary the Cross Church behind us. So it's a very, very beautiful area.
One of the most prominent churches in Sydney, and it was quite lovely. We went inside later.
We took a ferry to visit Cockatoo Island, which is the UNESCO World Heritage Site from 1839 to 1869.
And you can see the Harbor Bridge in the background there.
Yes, good point, because you can see fireworks from there. While it was a penal colony, the conditions, we saw some of the conditions, they were very, very harsh. Their beds were wooden pallets that were double-decker, like a bunk bed, and 4 men slept on a wooden pallet. It had a little wooden piece of wood for a pillow, and they each got 40 centimeters, which is just about 16 inches of space. Of course, they were very thin and emaciated. They didn't eat well. They didn't have warm clothes. Very, very harsh conditions, lots of disease. It then became shipyards.
But they didn't want to anger Captain Bligh.
It then became shipyards, and there's tunnels there where they brought goods. It's a pretty good-sized island. And now, when we first got off, we saw these tents. I'm like, interesting, because they look kind of, army-ish, right? These are called glamping tents, I learned, and people rent them for New Year's Eve, so they get great views of the fireworks. When we were getting off the ferry, there was a group of school children, I don't know, maybe 60 or so, probably 5th or 6th graders, getting on the ferry with their overnight bags and their sleeping bags or pillows or whatever. They had obviously spent the night there. Sydney transportation is awesome. Mike mentioned we took an Uber from the airport because the information person told us that was just about as cheap, and then we didn't have to worry about our luggage. But after that, we really just used the public transportation. Our hotel, we just walked out the door and turned the corner, and there was the King's Cross station.
So the cost of the subway and the ferries was very reasonable, but they did want to stick it to the travelers that were coming in on flights. That was their opportunity to really overcharge. So that's why we took Uber. We can just go straight to the hotel and not have to mess with changing trains. But once you get away from the airport, it was very reasonable.
who really knows? Because you tap your card on, you tap your card off, and when you get the bill later, you're like, I guess that's how much we pay for transportation. Lots of Uber Eats. So this is the area that we were staying in, which was, there are a few hotels, but mostly residential and light commercial, and all these scooters delivering the Uber Eats type of things.
You know, one other thing, Gail,
Mhm.
I haven't been in that many subway systems, but the subway system in Sydney was very clean. It was very graffiti free, and most importantly, it seemed like in every station, you could quickly find someone to assist you. Because if you're not used to going on subways, it can be a little intimidating. So,
Yeah, we had to make a transfer to get the circular key, and it was a big station with all these levels, and we needed help most every time. Just when I thought I had figured out, they closed down the train and we had to go across and do the light rail. So then we needed help. Australian food eats, you've all heard of Vegemite. I kind of thought it was okay. He bought me a savory Danish, and it had Vegemite on it.
but I didn't tell her.
He didn't tell her, and I just was eating it. And so it was fine. And we brought some home and we tried it at home. And if you put enough butter, the key is butter. You need a lot of butter with your cracker or your roll. And then you sprinkle or very carefully paste on a little bit of Vegemite.
Americans like their peanut butter. Australians love their Vegemite, and Australians don't put butter on it. They just smear some Vegemite on whatever they're going to smear it on.
What's Vegemite taste like? What is it like?
If you've ever had nutritional yeast on anything, a little bit like that. It's very pungent. It's quite pungent. Fish and chips, all awesome. We had different kinds of fish. This picture on the left is chips, of course, or fries.
Is that from Manly Beach?
That's from Manly Beach, and that was a barramundi fish. It was amazing.
Lots of seaside sidewalk restaurants.
And whenever we ordered food that wasn't just carry out, we got not just the fish and chips that we ordered, we got a little, you can just barely see it on the right, a little salad. So it was healthy, right? We bought a number of meat pies and had them for either breakfast or lunch. The chicken and lamb and beef, all kinds of meat pies.
$3, $4, $5. Now Australian dollars, which would be
$2.50.
Yeah. So when I was in Australia back in 1980, it was the Australian dollar was stronger than the American dollar, whereas the New Zealand dollar was on par with the American dollar. So it seemed reasonably priced to us.
Very favorable exchange. And Tim Tams, you can get Tim Tams all over Australia, New Zealand. Such a good cookie. We bought just a few boxes.
And on Amazon here in town.
You can get them. There you go. All right, we got to move on to Adelaide here. We're still in Sydney. Okay, so moving on to Adelaide and the surrounding area. We were there for 5 or 6 days. We went down to the Floria Peninsula, and that's kind of part of the wine country. And we went to Victor Harbor. We went to a whale museum. There's my cursor. We went to a whale museum there. I mean, we just kind of drove around this area. It was kind of a rainy day. It cleared off for a minute. We'll show you in a bit. And we also went up to Port Augusta, which is just on the edge of the Outback. And we went to the Outback Center.
That looks like a short drive. It really wasn't.
330 kilometers.
Oh,
So that's what, 250 miles. It was a day. We stayed at the Marion Hotel, which was again in a kind of a residential area.
It was a residential area.
When we picked up our car at the car rental, the guy asked us where we were staying. We told him the Marion Hotel, and he was like, "Oh, that's the one with the pokey." Like, pokey? Well, pokey is a slot machine room. And I spent my $5 Australian. It went real fast. We ate down in the dining room that was on the first floor. We were on the top floor. So we had one of these rooms with the little sitting areas, and you kind of see me sitting back
So
there.
this was sort of the top of the line room for this hotel. That's not something we normally do, but it was roughly about $160, and it was so spacious, we decided to splurge a little bit, and had a lovely view. And it was a typical hotel, but it was very reasonably priced.
So while in Adelaide, before we get to the main event, as I mentioned, we went to the Florida coast, and we did have the sunshine broke out for a few minutes, and we walked on the beach and picked up some seashells. We drove up to the Murray River and crossed it on this little ferry. The river is about 200 meters
The Mighty
wide.
Murray.
Mighty Murray. And we went up to the Outback Center, as I mentioned, showed you 330 kilometers from Adelaide. It was very interesting. They talked about the Aboriginals, and then they talked about the settlers that came in like the mid 1800s, and life there and life on a station, which was like a large ranch. And so that was pretty interesting. And then the drive was just through the country and kind of away from the coast a little bit. The day we went to the Outback Center was the day of the Melbourne Cup. I knew this, I had it mentally registered. I just didn't really realize that day what day it was. It really didn't matter about the Outback Centers when we came back. When we came back, we were tired from our long trip and driving, and we really just wanted to go to the restaurant in our hotel and just sit down, have our meal and a glass of wine and go up to our room. Oh no, there was a party.
This is the Kentucky Derby of Australia.
There was loud music. There were ladies in fancy bright dresses and big old hats, and they were all partying, and the restaurant was full. But this is the winner of the Melbourne Cup, and it was ridden by a female jockey. So that was kind of cool. We spent a day at Glenelg Beach. That's right on the outskirts of Adelaide.
Coastal suburb of Adelaide.
And the days start out cool, and I'm in long sleeves, and that was a mistake. I had my coat there beside me too. I needed the coat, but I wish I'd worn short sleeves because it turned out to be a gorgeous day. So we walked along the beach, and we walked out on the pier over here, and we had fish and chips at a little restaurant, and there's a Ferris wheel there in the background. But
Next one.
and you can see, go ahead.
Oh, so where we had the fish and chips and beer, Gayle is pointing at that. The building is still there 100 years later. So
I'm
this
pointing
picture
where we
is
were
100
sitting.
years ago. The pier was there. This was a very popular destination, and the reason for it was because they had a tram that went from Glenelg into the central business district of Adelaide, so you could really come and go quite easily.
Speaking of which,
And so it's a couple screens back when Gayle and I crossed the mighty Murray River on the ferry, which was really fun. The Murray River, I believe, is the longest running river in Australia, and it goes through South Australia and up into New South Wales. And so there were a lot of farmers and ranchers that wanted to move their products back in the day on the river. Trouble is, there wasn't a port to, have the products go to and have the ships come to. So a gentleman by the name of Ayres was asked to go find the proper place to build the port city on the Murray River. And he was backed by some very large investment bankers. And so he determined that that would not work. They could not build the city of Adelaide at the port of the Murray River because it was not deep enough. So he moved it roughly 50 miles or so to the west, which angered the financial people tremendously. But as it turned out, he had made the right call. As he said, time will tell whether I made the right decision. And he did. And so he laid out in a grid pattern the Adelaide Central Business District, and which was very easy to get around. You can take the tram to Glenelg. Beautiful, beautiful park all around the Central Business District. 360 degrees, they laid out this green space parks. So it's very, very lovely. And he was honored by, they named the Ayers Rock in the central part of the outback after him. So they never did really build a port at the mouth of the Murray River, but it all worked out.
And Ayers Rock's now called Uluru with the Aboriginal name. Okay, my reason for coming to Australia and specifically Adelaide is the Cleveland Wildlife Park. When we decided to go, I researched where can I hold a koala? This is what I want to do. And there's a couple places on the east side of the country where you can hold a koala. And one of them is in Adelaide at the Cleveland Wildlife
In the
Center.
hill country outside of Adelaide.
Adelaide Hills, beautiful area. And so we saw a lot of other animals besides koalas. It was a very, very interesting place. We had booked the private koala hold, which meant we were the only people that day that could hold a koala or touch a koala. The koalas work and they
Well, there are
have
going
to
to be a
rest.
few others, but they didn't show.
No, we had the private deal. Oh, there's somebody else. They have other experiences that you can do where you can maybe just pet a koala or whatever. But I asked them if we could do the private koala hold, which we had half hour with koala. You'll see that in a minute. And then we had a half-hour tour of the park. And then we could spend as much time in the park as we wanted to. So we had Mads giving us a tour of the park before she took us to the koalas and then afterwards. Wait. We have to talk about the short bead echidna. Echidna. I got
Easy
it.
for you to say.
It's not. This is an egg-laying mammal. I think the platypus is the only other one. Very interesting. It looks like a porcupine, I think. And feeding the kangaroos and the wombats and the wallabies, and I can't keep them all straight. But here's the reason we went. So we had our private hold. We had to wear the jackets. This is Archer, our koala. Archer weighs 12 kilos. That's 25 pounds. After about 10 minutes, Archer felt pretty heavy. And we're used to holding our granddaughter, but he's 4 years old. His handler is Ash, so she works just with the koalas. And she told us that the koalas like to work because they get to eat from a eucalyptus buffet. Apparently, there's lots of different kinds of eucalyptus, and they eat the whole time, and they get whichever ones they want. So they actually ask to work. The koala is distinctive by its snout. So this is how they tell the koalas apart, besides the chips that they put in them. That's how they tell them apart. But it was great fun. Yeah, after we probably each held him about 10 minutes, and he felt pretty warm and pretty heavy.
The fur was like a kind of a rough wool, and really thick, and the body heat was intense.
And they don't lose their fur. So they, in the summer, when it gets hot, they are just hanging out. They're always just hanging out in the tree, but they kind of spread out a little bit more in the tree. They had just built, it had just opened. So they were just going into their first summer of an air-conditioned place for the koalas to live.
Well, they sleep about 20, 22 hours a day.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
And we had to stand perfectly still. We couldn't sway or bounce or clench their fur. We had to act like we were the tree. And in fact, when she handed him to us, she goes, okay, he'll put his paw on you, and then you put your hand underneath him, and then he'll just climb to you. And that worked. She and I were about the same height. So that worked for her to give him to me back to her back to Mike. But when she had to get him from Mike, she had to get a step stool to stand up so that Archer could climb up to her from Mike.
And what, Archer would only do this, what, twice a week?
At the most.
They just don't want too much interaction with anyone other than the handlers. But Archer's a star, so he cooperated.
He was a good boy. And this is Mad. So she's the one that did the tour for us before and after Archer. She is a marsupial expert. When she told us that, it occurred to me that we don't have very many marsupials here in the United States. I said, I guess we just have the opossum. And she said, yes, we have possums. We have a lot of possums. You have an opossum or a possum. They're very different. And so it was just kind of interesting. Yeah, that's what she does is marsupials, and there's so many of them. But this emu, yeah, we have to. The emu is Wonky. His name is Wonky. And Wonky was very excited to see Mads. She was way over at this fence and came trotting right up to her because she had the food bucket. And so she demonstrated how to feed Wonky. And Mike gave it a go, and it took, oops, let me go back to Wonky. Took less than 3 seconds for him to pick out all the food he wanted, and you didn't feel anything, did you?
No.
Then we got to see a Tasmanian devil.
Look at the ears. They're red.
That was really cool. We saw so many things. I mean, I just couldn't even begin to put all the pictures in. Also, South Australia is known as a wine country. This is the Shiraz area of Australia.
Many of the Australian wines you buy at the Total Wine or wherever, you'll notice they are from South Australia.
Yeah, and I do like an Australian Shiraz. So we did a wine tasting at Bird in the Hand. We had to keep moving. Just local interests, lots of beautiful botanic gardens. Remember, it's November, so we're enjoying the springtime there. And we did get to see this cricket practice.
It was just outside of the community center, a block or two from where we were staying.
And the last thing we did in Adelaide and in Australia was go to this touristy German village called Handorf. It's up in the Adelaide Hills. We got a gourmet hot dog. It was just packed, and this is where all the people were. Lots of shops.
Think Western Missouri times 10. That's what it was like.
Okay, we have to sail through New Zealand.
And having a beer and a ring back or Sardinia.
Yes.
You noticed. Good day, Australia.
What'd you say?
You say it.
No, you say it.
Good day, Australia.
Yeah, there you go. Good day.
Good day, Australia. I didn't do the head shake. New Zealand. New Zealand is about the size of Colorado, a little bit smaller than Colorado, both population and area. We only went to the South Island, and we spent all our time there. Here's the main areas that we went to. We went to, not necessarily in this order. We flew into Christchurch, which is number 6 here. And
About the size of Wichita.
And then we first went to the mountains in the Southern Alps and Lakes area. We also visited Alexandra and Queenstown. We took the Great Highway from Christchurch to Greymouth and did the Great Coast Road. We were down in Dunedin and in Oamaru. We saw the little penguins, and then we spent time in Christchurch. New Zealand is really about, as Mike said, it's just beautiful. It's really all about the beauty. This is Mount Cook, 12,200 feet tall. It's where Sir Edmund Hillary practiced for his ascent of
Mount Everest.
Mount Everest, thank you. And we ate salmon that had been farmed in the lake that we're sitting by.
80% of the population of New Zealand is in the North Island, but 80% of the sheep are in the South Island.
Lots of sheep. There are a lot of cattle too. But I didn't take pictures of cows because I see cows all the time. I'm from Kansas.
But that was very typical of the scenery. The Southern Alps were pretty. Here's a world-class rock skipper.
I bet it's 55 still.
Nice. I think you're right. So lakes Chakapu and Pulaski, just beautiful lakes in the foothills of the Southern Alps. I was shocked to see palm trees. We're at 44 degrees south latitude. That's like Minneapolis. And there's palm trees everywhere and mountains. These yellow bushes is springtime. They kind of look like forsythia from the distance. They don't when you get up close, but Mike said that he recalled them saying that that was an invasive species when he was there 46 years ago. Our accommodations all had full kitchenettes, with plates, and we could cook. my favorite thing was all of our accommodations in both Australia and New Zealand had not only coffee makers, but tea kettles. I'm a tea drinker. I don't like tea that tastes like coffee. I love my tea kettles, but we also enjoyed cooking in our room. This one right down here is someone's home and a hangar and 5 lodging rooms. And this is outside of that
This is
space.
right outside our sliding door.
That's where you get your car started in the morning.
The owner takes people up on his plane to go to Mount Cook's glaciers.
They were multi-generational family, and they eventually sold their family sheep farm in the south part of the island and invested in the motel. So Queenstown is the town that most think of in South Australia, or excuse me, the South Island, New Zealand. A mountain town. It was a little bit, when I was there a long time ago, it reminded me of the vibe you got from the Colorado mountain towns, frisbee throwing, a lot of young people, backpackers. And now when we went, it was more like Aspen now, where it was a very upscale shopping area, very expensive. Nothing like it was in 1979, but it was still very beautiful.
Lots of condos, not very many backpackers. We stayed in Alexandra, which is near Queenstown. Beautiful area. They have a lot of biking trails there, so that is a tourist thing to do, is the bike trails and the wine trails. We did visit a vineyard there that looked like a pioneer home here, because it was their gold rush, and they had actually gotten furnishings from the US to furnish this place. That was kind of
They would go through the Great Plains to old towns, dusty towns, to buy their antiques and
then they had trouble getting it through customs in New Zealand, because they don't want you to bring any diseases or dead bugs or anything like that back into New Zealand. This cat came into our room. We brought Kentucky Fried Chicken into our room, and this cat just came in through the window and joined us. This is the Alpine Highway from Christchurch to Greymouth. Arthur's Pass is a famous area. So we went through this mountains of twisty, windy roads, just a gorgeous drive. You can kind of see the covered bridge and these 2 slides and the waterfall that they channeled over the road. And we're going to talk about this in a minute. When we got to the other side along the
west side,
the Great Coast Road, we went to Hokitika, which is a jade area and a beautiful beach. This is kind of a pebble beach. Our hotel was right there, and we walked down there and enjoyed the sunset. Picked up a lot of rocks that had green in that was not jade. Wanaka and Lake Hawea, just another beautiful place in New Zealand. Springtime, I took a walk along this road, and we had a picnic lunch. Driving in New Zealand, of course, in New Zealand and Australia both, they drive on the left-hand side of the road. Mike did a great job with that. He only turned on the blinkers or the wipers instead of the blinkers 4 or 5 times. But yeah, it's just a little bit different. They have a lot of one-way bridges, and this tells you who has the right of way. So in this case, the oncoming traffic had the right of way. I don't know if you guys see that because I'm not up there. Yeah, I'll move that. This sign amused me. They had these exclamation points, like the big red triangle doesn't tell you enough. They needed to add an exclamation point to let you know that you needed to pay attention to that light. And then the price of gas is, of course, in New Zealand dollars, in liters. So it cost us 107 New Zealand dollars to fill up our tank. It translated to about $5.70 per gallon then, when gas here was $2.75. A little bit more about driving New Zealand. We found a lamb in the road. these bathrooms, every little town we drove through,
Tiny towns of maybe 100 people,
yeah, they
200 people.
had a city park and with an oval for rugby or cricket or whatever. And these nice bathrooms, they weren't all as decorated as this. And they had signs on the main road pointing you to the park and the bathrooms. And they were just very convenient and lovely.
It was nice because you can't count on quick trips or rest stops per se on the highways, but these little towns would have the restroom accommodations for you.
We weren't driving anything that was like an interstate. Of course, everything's in metric since 1969, 1970 in both countries. Temperatures in Celsius, distance in centimeters, kilometers, weights in kilos. We kind of got a little bit of feel for some of it. But we were talking to a gal at the visitor center, one of the visitor center, and she was talking about the amount of snow they'd had. And she said, oh, we had so many feet. I'm like, well, feet, you would do that in centimeters, meters. She said, oh, no, we measure snow in feet. Okay. Don't know why. Dunedin and Port Chalmers down on the southeast side of New Zealand, gorgeous, settled by Scottish settlers. They built this gorgeous Presbyterian church. They brought that religion with them. That's called First Church. We had an awesome meal there of barramundi. No, that's different. Tarakihi fish, very good. At this famous historic Carey's Bay Historic Hotel, which is just a restaurant now.
A little side note there in Dunedin, it's got supposedly the steepest pedestrian residential road in the world. So look it up if you're interested.
Yeah, it was.
We saw a lot of pictures and we just didn't have time to go to it, but it was interesting.
But as we came into it, we were coming down. So it is.
It's a college town. It's a beautiful town, beautiful coastline. So this, I wanted to see if I could find a youth hostel that I had stayed in 1979. New Zealand had the best youth hostel association in the world at the time. And it was in the middle of the South Island. There was nothing around it. That's what I recalled. And sure enough, on our drive through the mountains, I found it. And it was no longer a youth hostel, but a Maori lady from Auckland had bought it about 10 years prior. And she had a sign up saying no visitors, but that didn't stop me. Her front door was open, so I just went on up to the front door and said, Gayle, come with me if you want. And I started chatting with her, and she invited me into her home. She lives there. All the rooms that the youth would stay in, they were still there. All the memories came flooding back, and it was a beautiful property. It's hard to believe she just lives there by herself, although her granddaughter had lived with her for a couple of years. But she enjoyed our visit. She gave me a big hug, and then she gave me a Ray's Junction T-shirt as a gift. So that was really neat to be able to find this place.
Oamaru, this is a place where you can see the little blue penguins. So this, it's a preserve. The little blue penguins, you can't take any pictures. So the lower right picture is not my picture. I stole that one off the internet. They're only 12 or 13 inches tall.
And they're cute.
Blue. They're just adorable. And they go out to fish all day long. And at sunset, they come back.
A long ways. They don't just go out into the harbor.
They come back in rafts. So the raft might be just 4 or it might be 20 of these penguins all together.
Or it might be 100.
And then they clamber up the rocks and then they jet across the gauntlet that you see there, that terrace. And there's a seal laying there. That's not a rock in the foreground there. And you can go watch them. And when they get through there, then they have little houses that they've built. But they don't all have or go to their houses. They get out in the parking lot. You have to look underneath your car to be sure there's not a little penguin there when you leave. But they did not allow any photography. You couldn't talk. You couldn't stand up. You couldn't have your binoculars out. You must be very respectful because this is a
they track these penguins, and when they're out in the ocean, they go out there and they break off into small groups, pods, and they fish in that area and over in that area, but they always come back to the invisible highway that they take back to this particular location. They don't deviate. They don't go 100 yards over there or 50 yards over there. Their navigation is precise. And when they get within about 100 to 200 yards of shore, all of a sudden, you can't see them swimming, but then all of a sudden they kind of rise up to the level of the water, and the water's just churning. And you're going, what is that? And it's just that group of little penguins churning up the water. And then as they get closer, they're just racing. It's like they're racing, like, oh my God, we're almost there. Let's hurry before the sharks get us. And then everyone takes a breath and they made it.
They were adorable. They live in other parts of, so near Oamaru, we stayed at Tushmaker's Lodging. And so this big mansion was built about 1861 by English immigrants. And when they left the home, it became a girls' school, and they built this chapel. It's a Gothic revival style. You can kind of see the flying buttresses here on the side. This is the inside. It was just gorgeous. The school was run for 65 years, had as many as 120 girls, K through 12. The people that own the place now, they use the chapel for weddings. And then there's a breezeway that connects the chapel to the lodging. And they gave us a great tour. There's a bridal suite. It was just a lovely thing. And then they have Belgian chocolate making on the ground floor. And I think everybody that works there does everything, because the girl that gave us a tour said she gets to paint the little faces on, because they of course do penguins and lambs, and she gets to paint on the little chocolates. But they also raise sheep and alpacas, and they have an orchard. Whew, lots going on there. And it was just a beautiful place to stay.
Found on Google Maps. Almost all of our lodging was found that way.
In New Zealand, we didn't plan in advance, so he was kind of doing it as we got. And that particular one, we got a discount because they just had a few rooms left. There was a Victorian festival going on in town that they didn't participate in because they didn't like the theme this year. The Moraki Rocks, very cold, very windy. You can see cloudy day. 10-minute walk out to the rocks. We didn't spend a lot of time, but it's kind of a cool place. So they're certainly a unique. Okay, finally, Christchurch is our last stop. There's a few things here about Christchurch. I had the best ever lamb salad. It was amazing. We went back a second time for it. And Mike had it the second time and agreed with me that it was amazing. This girl on the right with the violin, we found a farmer's market just around the corner from our hotel. And we were there on a Saturday, and we went to the farmer's market, and we got some bacon and egg sandwiches for breakfast. And I got some chai. It was the best chai I've ever had. We got some other things, but this girl was playing her violin.
So I asked her if she would accept some American money, and she said yes, she does, because she is planning on going to America one day.
And when Mike had been there in 1979, there was a town crier out in front of the City Hall, I believe, Town Hall. And so he reenacted.
What I didn't know was back in that day, the same fella did this for decades, and he only retired 4 or 5 years ago. And he was a professor, and he would come down at lunchtime and just voice his opinions on everything for about an hour. So I had seen him 1979, and he just retired a few years ago. But this was sort of ground zero for the devastation from the Christchurch earthquakes that happened a number of years ago.
2010, 2011.
They still have many buildings that have not been repaired, including their most dominant church.
Speaking of that, we drove into the city center area, and took a trolley. This is actually the trolley that I'm on here. It was really busy. It was a weekend and there was a cruise ship in port and it was about to rain. So we didn't have time to take the whole tour. Didn't want to get wet. We stopped and went to the Quake City to learn more about the museums. They've had many, many, many earthquakes there. But yeah, 2010, 2011, they had several devastating earthquakes. One of my favorite things in Christchurch, besides the lamb salad, was the Botanic Garden. It's just beautiful. It's right there on the edge of the Central Business District. They have a beautiful rose garden. It's really huge. You have to look it up to get a sense of the size of it. But we had a beautiful day to spend there.
It's a very walkable city.
Yeah. So that's pretty much it. I did really like this postcard that shows Australia top and center as you know, and it just takes a lot for me to wrap my mind around seeing everything upside down, if you will. So we don't have a lot of time, but Mike and I are here for as long as you like, if you have any questions.
Let me start by thanking Gayle and Mike for another fantastic presentation. Your content, your organization, your pictures are just amazing.
Thank you.
And I said to you before that I've gone to Australia, but I've never have gone to New Zealand. And I'm thinking to myself, those little blue penguins would have drawn me there in a second.
You can see them in Melbourne, outside of Melbourne, Australia, if you don't go to New Zealand.
There, but I didn't see them in Melbourne. Let's give them a nice hand. Let me, and let's take some time for some questions. You said one of the reasons you went to Australia was for the animals and we saw a lot of them. Was there anything that surprised you most about any animal that you saw?
Wow. I mean, seeing the Tasmanian devil, that was so cool.
It was a little noisier than I thought.
It was noisy.
Okay.
Yeah. We did see, I didn't put the picture in, we did see the world's most venomous snake. Fortunately, that was at the zoo and in the cage. Not the zoo, but the Cleveland Wildlife Park. Because they've got some bad critters down there in Australia.
Yeah, the amount of kangaroos that you see, it's amazing.
Yes, we never saw a kangaroo in the wild. I had hoped to. You saw the kangaroo crossing sign maybe, but people we talked to said they do see them. I mean, I think they're like deer. You know, you probably see them earlier in the morning and in the evening when we probably just weren't out on the roads. So if we go back, I'm still hoping to see a kangaroo just hopping along the road in the wild.
They have, when I was there, when I was younger, not only did I see a lot of kangaroos, I felt them because our bus ran over one. So they have a problem. There are just so many crossing. So when we were traveling from Adelaide to Perth, crossing the Nullarbor Plain, that's kind of like going from Houston to LA. They put on rhubars. They call them rhubars, kangaroo rhubars on the front of trucks and personal vehicles because you're going to run into a kangaroo. So you want to protect your engine. So,
Interesting.
yeah, you see them everywhere.
Well, let's take a couple minutes. People that are sitting in the audience, people online, any questions for these experts, Mike and Gayle?
So my question is, you went to some beautiful areas. Was there anything that you didn't see that you wish you would have seen in either of those two? I mean, cities or locations that you didn't get to?
Well, South Australia is large. All of these places are immense. And we talked a lot about going to one of my favorite places I had gone to previously, and that's Coober Pedy. Coober Pedy was the opal mining capital of the world. And so that's that's south of Alice Springs, if you've heard of Alice Springs. But Coober Pedy was 15-hour drive from Adelaide or so, and you're driving through the outback. There's no real services. If you have a problem, you got a problem.
But the cool thing about Coober Pedy, not only is it the opal mining capital of the world, it's all underground. It's so dang hot there.
People
the
live underground.
churches,
They
the
just-
homes, the restaurants, everything is underground.
Yeah, it was really cool.
I would love to see it. My brother and sister-in-law went there and saw it and saw the picture of them eating. And they were a long table, a lot of people on their tour, as they were on a tour. It looked a little claustrophobic. She said it really wasn't as bad as it looked, but it does look a little claustrophobic without that daylight.
So that was very unique. Also, coastal drives. Now, this trip was sort of the urban visit, the Sydney area, and then the Adelaide with some of the hills. So we didn't really go out into the hinterland like we have plans on our next visit to do.
Is there anybody on Zoom that has any question? Yeah.
Any of you have any questions? Helen or Joy or Linda? Thank you, Helen.
Last week I had a chance to meet with a former student of mine from Australia. Mark Lambert was his name, and he actually worked in the admissions office here for a couple of years, and he was from Adelaide. And he keeps saying, Dave, I want you to come over, I want you to come over. As I'm watching this, I want to go over now too.
If you can't hear on Zoom, Dave's saying that he has a student from Adelaide, Australia that wants him to come, and he's ready to go now.
Gayle's older cousin, quite a bit older, actually went to Australia 2 or 3 times and came this close to moving to Adelaide. He said he just loved it. He was a retired preacher, and I think Adelaide was known as the city of churches.
Mhm.
Yeah, and it's just a beautiful, beautiful city. And you're close to the ocean, you're close to the really pretty hill country, and so that would be a good choice.
Yeah.
It's easy to visit. They don't want you to stay. Moving there is going to be difficult. They want to make sure you have plans to come home.
But that being said, the Australian youth tend to migrate from Adelaide to Sydney and Melbourne, and now Perth is really a happening place.
Now, you are planning to go back, and you're going to do a part 2 for us, of course. And what are your plans? And let me back up here, Mike. You said you might go back, but a lot of it's dependent on the gasoline issue. Could you explain that to what you said to me before we start the presentation?
Sure, we have plans, reservations for October to return to do Queensland and Western Australia. But Australia has gone from having 7 refineries to 1. And so they import all their oil, jet fuel, diesel from Singapore and some South Korea. Well, it's getting harder and harder to get those supplies. So we haven't canceled anything yet, but not only has the price gone up substantially, but this trip would involve a lot of rental car driving. And so I want to make sure that there's not ration of fuel, because I've been keeping my finger on the pulse of what's going on in Australia, and that's, they're talking about that, and they have a lot of gas stations that have shut down, and they're down to about 3 weeks of fuel supplies, and so things is up in the air.
But if our plans are to go in October for 4 weeks.
We hope you do for many reasons, obviously, for your own enrichment, but for our enrichment. You just give marvelous presentations. So, anybody else have any comments they want to make? Well, let's give these folks another
Thank you.
round of applause.
Thank you. Thank you, Joy.
And Jonathan doesn't like me thanking him, but he's here.
Thank you, Jonathan.
He sends stuff to Zoom and shows up, and Joan, his wife, always enjoys him, and it's always good seeing you, plus you other folks that are here.
Yeah, for those of you watching on Zoom, it's because of Jonathan, whether you're watching live today or down the road.
I know
and I appreciate that.
Traveling Robert last time we got together. I don't know if you ever saw any of his videos, but that's high on his list of where he wants to go, Australia.
Yeah.
And his videos usually are about 6 month delay, so you know we're right on with par with him.
Does Australia ever have a halfway place that planes can land and have a break? Everybody always,
Oh, yes,
they do.
Hawaii.
Why?
Dubai. I have friends that went through Dubai.
Why?
Yeah, no, Dubai isn't halfway to Australia.
No.
It's something better and better, right?
But it's-
That's long, right?
I think it's still 10 hours from Hawaii.
Yeah, it's still pretty far from Hawaii. The flight really, it really wasn't that bad.
Yeah.
You know, we were in premium economy,
You don't want to go economy?
Sure.
which helps a lot. But I mean, it's long, it's boring. That's the worst of it. It's just boring.
You just have to be prepared. I wouldn't have called it boring. You just have to be mentally prepared to have a long flight and enjoy a book,
In and out.
movies, get up frequently and move. I mean, it's part of the journey.
They and we didn't have too bad jet lag either way. Now, I think we didn't have too bad jet lag because we traveled like we travel or like we live at home. We
Right.
did stuff during the day, and in the evening we chilled and relaxed, or we would relax midday if we're going out in the evening. We didn't try to go. Joy and I go sometimes too much. But that's
Carolyn, have you been up to this area?
No, I haven't been to either of those areas, so I'd love to go.
And Jonathan and Joan?
They have cruises. You can take all the way from the west coast down there.
That's what I think I will do.
Take a cruise and then just fly home, or
Yeah.
do it vice versa.
yeah, you can take those cruises that move with you.
Yeah,
Okay.
Amazing as always, yeah, brings back lots of memories, and again, I'm fascinated by the penguins, you know.
Oh, they were so cute.
They not want you to take pictures because they just don't want the penguins upset, or
The bright lights affect their
Yeah.
eyes, and which is interesting because we're in this penguin reserve, nature reserve, and then once you leave the parking lot, you have coastline, which, by the way, will have little blue penguins, and there's all sorts of tourists, you know, with their cameras and their.
We don't care about penguins getting disturbed then. I mean, they would prefer you didn't, of course, but yeah, they're just really strict where you're sitting in the stands, you know, they have people right there and they will ask you to leave if you talk too much or have any kind of a
It's kind of
light.
like, you know, you wish they would have that philosophy in movie theaters. You're out of here if you don't sit in.
so I wanna ask about the penguins, they go out and they catch their fish, do they bring them back or do they eat them while they're
If
out?
they have young, they are bringing them back.
That's what I wondered if they did.
Well, they probably regurgitate. I'm not really
Yeah.
sure
Yeah,
because.
yeah, we didn't really see the fish or
But it
anything.
was, they were bringing back.
Of course, I couldn't use binoculars, so.
But they had cute little homes that, you know, were about mounds of dirt, you know, like that, and just like a little cave or something, and, you know, the little penguins would be waiting for mama and daddy.
Did you see the babies? I mean, could you?
No.
You could
they
hear,
were-
Okay.
you could hear the excitement, like, oh, they're all, you know, they're coming, you could hear that.
Mama, daddy, mama, daddy.
Yeah, it's very interesting. All of it. I mean, the New Zealand's beautiful. Wow. I
It
Yeah,
mean,
the
is.
pictures
He's
really
right,
don't
yeah,
do
the
it justice.
pictures just don't
Just-
even, yeah.
It's a big industry of New Zealand tourism. I mean, it didn't seem to be a lot of industrialism.
Well,
I
their
would say.
greatest export, at least it used to be, was sheep. And then they would prepare them. Their primary customers were the Muslim countries where you have to
Right.
prepare sheep in a certain
and
religious way.
Wool too is really big thing in New Zealand.
Yes, we could buy lots of merino wool, which was always
Some of the best.
used merino, is it merino and possum? Everything was a blend of merino and possum. Again, not our opossums, but the possums, whatever those.
Give me a good fleece.
But I did not buy anything. It felt scratchy to me, and I just thought my skin was too sensitive for that.
But yeah, it's tourism and you can certainly tell when you're there why it's so popular. And in fact, that was in hindsight, I'm looking back 47 years ago thinking South Island did not have this kind of traffic when I was here before. It was like, there was a lot of traffic on these mountainous country roads.
We didn't go to Milford Sound, which is in the far southwest of the country. So Queenstown's the jumping off point to go to Milford Sound. My brother and his wife went there and they did a big hike. What's it called?
Milford, the Milford trip.
I got him on the spot. It was like a 2 or 3 day, it was a 3 day hike, I think, that they did. But the weather just wasn't going to be right for that. And we aren't hikers at this point in our lives, so.
So
We
that's
didn't
an
go.
example. I did that like the Root Burn Trek.
Root burn.
And so it was 2 days, 2 easy days and 1 night. Now it's 3 days, 2 nights. You have to have a guide. You have to have reservations. When I did it, you just showed up and you did it. And so tourism is just sort of taken over. But yeah, they have the most beautiful fjords outside of Norway are on the southwest corner of the South Island Fjordland National Park, and which is would have been we thought about it, but time constraint, it would have taken the better part of 2 days and a night to do that, and the weather, it's up in the air. It could be beautiful or it could be just raining cats and dogs, so we just didn't do it.
Thank you. So good.
Thank you.